of the Unforsaken Sisters podcast. My name is Sochi Elmore, and I'm your host. And every single podcast, we get to bring an amazing woman of God that gets to share her story and a way of encouraging our community. And today we have the beautiful, the amazing Angel Clark.
Oh, I feel like I don't deserve all that praise.
Yes, you do. Angel, thank you for joining us on this very important topic. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. But Angel, before we get started about the topic, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so basically I am a mom of 3 boys. I actually have a daughter who passed away from cancer, so I have a beautiful angel in heaven waiting on me named Kylie. Yeah. And that's kind of, for many, many years, that was the focus of my entire life. You know, as a mom, your kids kind of, that's all you really can focus on. Yep. But aside from that, I worked for Unforsaken. So for anyone who doesn't know, my daughter who passed away is Mo's grandniece, is what she used to call her. So not granddaughter, but grandniece. Yes. And that's part of what encouraged Mo to start Unforsaken. So she's got several books dedicated to her. And so I have been around Unforsaken since the beginning. Yeah. You know, she started in like, I think 2012. And so I served at the welcome table, or I would just pass out flyers. I just volunteered. And then a few years after that, I had my Asher, who's 10 now. And I didn't want to leave him. Yeah. I was always a stay-at-home. You know, when I had my daughter, my husband and he would work the morning shift, I'd work the night shift, and then we would swap. Right. And so we never had her in daycare. She was always with one of us. And when it came time for Asher, I didn't want to leave him. Right. So I was a server at the time, and so that was really hard because I had to like physically leave him. And Mo says to me, "Do you want to come work for me?" Wow. And so I was able to transition to work from home, and I could bring Asher with me. And it was so funny because there's actually videos somewhere. He was around 2, and we would have meetings at my house. Oh, okay. And he called himself the Unforsaken board president. So he'd be like, "I'm the Satan woman, I'm the president." So we have videos. Cute. So I've just been around Unforsaken for so long. Yeah. But then I actually had some stuff going on in my personal life, which we'll get to today. I just really had a lot going on, and so I felt like God was calling me just to stay home. So I stepped away from Unforsaken for about 3 years. I started pursuing my degree because I want to be a women's counselor. So I'm going to get my clinical degree in psychology. So I started doing that, and then I got pregnant very unexpectedly because my Zeke, who's 8 now, oh my. Those of us who have like kids, their personalities are so different. Yes. Zeke was my wild one. Okay. And I was like, and we're done. We're not doing this again. Yes. But then obviously God had other plans because my little Azariah came. And then I actually became a single mom in 2023, right after Azariah was born. And so I reached out to Mo and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I mean, I have attorney's fees to pay, and my baby needs diapers. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So she actually spoke to the board and they agreed to hire me back with Unforsaken. So I'm like, yay! So Unforsaken has blessed me and my family in so many ways. Just from Mo and Tommy and Sarah and you guys and just everyone praying for me. Some of the single moms reaching out to me and, you know, giving me an opportunity to provide for my family when I didn't have any. I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't have a source of income. So I'm just very just want to say to anyone who doesn't know about this ministry or anyone who does know about the ministry, the impact that Unforsaken has on single moms is just, I mean, I can say from firsthand experience, I mean, I don't know where I would be without Unforsaken. I honestly, if I didn't have Unforsaken and my parents, I would be homeless. With this economy, I couldn't afford to, you know, to live on my own. So Unforsaken has just blessed me in so many ways, and so I'm glad to be back. After a little brief period. And then aside from, that's like my professional. Aside from that, I'm pretty much, my parents call me Granny because I'm in bed by 9 p.m. You know, I like to wake up and do my Bible study with, you know, drink my little cup of hot tea, watch the sunset. So I'm pretty much, I go to bookstore events, you know, I'm in like 7 book clubs. So if anyone has a book club out there, let me know, I'll join it. And that's pretty much, I like to travel. So that's awesome. Me in a nutshell.
Yeah. So, man, I love that, like, when you talk about Unforsaken, you also talk about how you started just as a married woman, as a mom, and then now you're a single mom, and so that's helped you, you know, with your transition. Like this is just a testimony of how like you were on the other side, and now you're on this side, and so it becomes so much more personal.
Absolutely.
Now, so that brings me to my next question: what do you do right now for Unforsaken?
Yeah, so in the past, I called myself a Jill of all trades because I did social media.
Yeah.
I helped with finances. I helped plan the fundraisers. I kind of had, you know, I had eggs in every basket, and it really honestly kind of led me to burnout, which is part of the reason I had to step away because at the very beginning, it was me and Mom.
Yeah.
Two people running this entire ministry.
Can't even imagine.
It was, I mean, looking back, I'm like, how did we do that?
Exactly.
And like I said, I also had a lot of other factors going on in my personal life that really, really exacerbated.
Exactly.
Because Mo, anyone who knows Mo, she is up at like 4 a.m. So I would get a text at like 5 a.m. like with a to-do list, and I'm like, I haven't even opened my eyes yet.
I know.
And then also she at like 9 p.m. If she thinks of something at like 9 p.m.
she's writing it down.
If she wakes up at 3 a.m. with a dream, she's like, by the way. So it's just I felt like I kind of never had time. You know, there wasn't a clock in, clock out.
Yes.
And so I thought, what was your question? Oh, my role. I know. I went off on a tangent.
No, what's your role right now at Unforsaken?
So when I initially came back in February of 2024, I was the finance director. So basically I just was in charge of the bookkeeping, and I was making sure we helped Sarah and I and Mo created a budget for the ministry, and I was trying to keep everybody on budget. But I'm really not good at math. So it really stressed me out. I'm like, what if I get the numbers wrong? You know? So then now we actually hired a finance director, which Bree has a degree in accounting.
Wow.
Which I'm like, thank you, Lord, for that, because somebody's got to be good at math.
And she does a great job.
She does. Yes. So when Bree got hired on, I switched from finance director to community relations advocate. So now what I do is I'm over the outreach program with the single moms.
Right.
And that to me, like, that's just like my sweet spot. You know, because like you're saying, like as a married mom, I was ministering, I thought I was ministering to these women.
Absolutely.
And because my mom, which we'll get into that today, my mom was pretty much a single mom. And so I thought I knew, I would say like, oh, I know what you're going through. And looking back, I'm like, they probably were like rolling their eyes at me, like, man, you have no clue. And so for me to be able, like, I recently had so part of what Unforsaken does is we help single moms and widows with like, with housing costs. So we rent payment, or we help them with a partial transportation, like if their car breaks down. And so now when they reach out to me and say specific things like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be homeless, and I literally can tell them, I know exactly what you're going through, because I do. So it really...
And before you didn't.
I thought I did.
I mean, well,
I look back and I'm like,
oh. Right, that, it's, like you said, it's your sweet spot.
Absolutely.
And, by you being the finance director, that got you in the door
back
too, and we're so grateful because you knew all the ins and outs of Unforsaken. You were able just to plug in into finance.
I know Sarah said we didn't even have to train her.
Exactly.
You just handed me a computer. And I'm like, I know what to,
exactly.
It was nice.
It was a beautiful thing, and you just even before like you knew that I was coming on, you had all these emails and lists step by step, which you're so organized, and that helped me so much. So even when you weren't on staff, before you came back on staff, you were still helping. I mean, you're just your presence and what you've done in this whole 15 years of Unforsaken. You've helped, with the foundation, and we're so grateful for that. And I'm so thankful that you are that community advocate for these moms, because you know exactly I don't know like you said, I can know what they're saying. Like, I don't have this money. I really don't.
Absolutely.
It's not like they're faking or lying. You're like, no, like, what can we do? And we do our best to help as much as we can.
We do.
So again, thank you for all that you do for Unforsaken. So as we lead up to this podcast, this specific topic was very important to you, and I asked you. I said, I want to interview you, and you specifically said, I want to wait till October because that is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And just a disclaimer, as we go into this podcast, this is a sensitive topic, such as physical assault, that might be mentioned. So I just want to make sure that we know, for little ears or sensitive ears, just make sure that everybody in the car or listening area is ready to receive what we're going to talk about. So let's jump right in. So can you define what domestic violence is?
Yes, so I actually, because it's one of those things that like I know it from a personal experience, but
Yes.
I wanted to get like the correct definition.
Yes.
So my handy dandy notes here. So according to like several resources that I looked up, like it was the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Women's Services. I looked up like Domestic Violence National Hotline. I kind of pulled from different places, and they pretty much all said the same thing. So domestic abuse is a pattern of abusive behaviors toward an intimate partner in a dating or family relationship where the abuser exerts power and control over the victim. Domestic abuse can be mental, physical, economic, or sexual in nature. Incidents are rarely isolated and usually escalate in frequency and severity. Domestic abuse may culminate in serious physical injury or death. This includes any behaviors that intimidate, manipulate, humiliate, isolate, all the eights apparently, frighten, terrorize, coerce, threaten, blame, hurt, injure, or wound someone. So that's a lot to even ingest.
Exactly. Right. Yes. So that there it could be from smaller.
Absolutely.
It's still very dangerous, but it could be all the way to death.
Absolutely. And that's something that is worth mentioning. Is that a huge portion, I didn't do my research, I've done it in the past, I should have put it in the notes, but a huge portion of homicides are of women are from previous partners.
Right.
I mean, it's staggering. I think it's like 70 or 80%. Like it's a high number. And also, women who are in abusive relationships, there's a statistic that they try to leave an average of 7 times.
Wow.
So this is something that they try to leave and and then all of a sudden they're roped back in, and then it's just. And so a lot of women they're advised by police officers and by their attorneys and just by family to apply for restraining orders.
Right.
Such a high number of women are murdered within 72 hours of the restraining order.
Wow.
Because there are certain things like when a restraining order is placed on you, you can't own a firearm.
Right.
And so you have this person who is abusive at their core.
Yeah.
And then you stamp this on them,
right.
and it just infuriates them. I actually, I wasn't even planning to share this, but I'm going to. So when I worked in the restaurant industry, I had a coworker who was in an abusive relationship, and she left. And she ended up getting murdered by her ex-partner.
Oh my goodness.
I actually have a friend who's a police officer, and he had just started. It was in Mascot.
Yes.
So he had just started.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yep.
Wow.
And he literally he had just done his training. It was his first shift by himself, and he gets the call that there's been a homicide. And her name is Christy, and I just remember like hearing that news. So it was so sad. Because as they were, of course it's an investigation. They're searching the house up and down. She had weapons taped under the table, hidden in the bathroom, in the closet. Like she had, because she knew this man was violent. And her daughter was home when it happened. So her little 3-year-old watched her mom get murdered. And so that's something that a lot of people don't realize is that abuse, like it says here, it can be little, but it oftentimes escalates.
Exactly.
And so that's why it's so important to me to talk about this.
Exactly.
I'm like, we cannot, like, as a mother, I mean, you have a daughter.
Yeah, exactly.
So you need to know what to do to prevent her from being in this position.
So true.
I mean, you could have a sister. I actually have an aunt who's been in an abusive relationship. She's divorced him twice and keeps getting remarried.
Oh my gosh.
Because it can happen to any ethnicity, any age, any social class. I mean, you hear about celebrities that come out, like Angelina Jolie.
Right, yeah.
This can affect any and every woman, and that's why, I mean, even it can affect men as well. Let's be honest.
Right, yes.
The majority of victims are women.
Right, yes, yes. What are some examples of abusive behaviors?
Yep. So it took me a while last night because I was like, I want to give specific, because if you just say the word abuse, I mean, people are like, oh, punching, things like they think of the big.
Physical.
Yes. But these are all examples of the ones that I personally have experienced in my own life.
Yeah.
Being overly possessive or jealous with no cause.
Right.
Depriving you of access to finances, or for example, taking your debit card, forcing you to ask permission, like almost like an allowance, like, hey, I need to buy this, is that okay? Opening a separate bank account and transferring money to that you have no access to. Dog whistling, which I just recently learned this term.
Right.
I had experienced it, but I had no clue what it was. So basically, dog whistling is where you're very sensitive about something, either something you're embarrassed of or something you're ashamed of, and the abuser will make jokes about it in front of people. And to everybody else, it'll seem like, oh, he's just joking.
Yes.
But you know in your heart.
Yeah.
And
he knows too.
For example, let's just say that, you have a parent who's an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
The abuser will say, oh, you don't end up like mom. Like things that people would not really pick up on, but that are very hurtful to you.
Yeah.
Erratic or reckless driving. So speeding, jumping curbs, slamming on your brakes, cutting in and out of traffic with the intention of scaring you.
Right, yeah.
Falsely accusing you of things they know that you didn't do. Gaslighting, which I feel like with Instagram and TikTok and all that term, oh, you're gaslighting me.
Yeah.
People say it so flippantly, but it is actually a psychological manipulation tactic. So basically gaslighting is where someone intentionally does something, and then when you confront them about it, they say, oh, you're remembering that wrong, or that didn't happen, or oh, here you go again, making up stories. They make you, the intention of it is to make you doubt yourself and make you question your sanity. And so that actually came from, there's a movie back in like the oh my gosh, I should have Googled it, but the movie, the husband was messing with the gaslight, and so when his wife would try to turn it on, he was like making her feel like it literally made her feel like she was going crazy.
That's where the term comes from. Okay.
And so they kind of took that, and because that's exactly what he was messing with it, and then he was pretending like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
So they do something, but then they make you feel like you're misremembering, or the next one is hacking into your technology. So deleting emails without you noticing, sending messages to people, harassing you, like stalking. There's people who, I actually have a friend who had a really, she got out before it got too bad, but she was dating this guy, and he was starting to get really possessive, and she'd been in a relationship that was really bad, so she kind of knew the signs. She fled the state, like in the middle of the night she moved.
Wow.
He created fake social media accounts and was like following her, and he knew where she was. He would make little comments like, oh, I see you're in a new, like, so, I mean, that's terrifying. When you're trying to flee from this person and they just, constantly stalk you. Purposely ruining days that they know are special to you. Could be a birthday, could be a graduation day, could be, let's say your mom is having a birthday party. They'll do something to purposely taint the day because they know how special it is to you. Twisting scripture in an attempt to harm you or justify their behaviors. Which that to me, it's actually called spiritual abuse. And that is a term that a lot of people haven't heard.
Right, I've never heard that.
It's actually really crazy because there are women, I've talked to many women who have been in these terrible situations, and myself included, this has happened to me. I've gone to people in the church and things like that, and they hit you with, just pray harder and forgive. God says to forgive, turn the other cheek.
Right.
Meanwhile, they're completely neglecting all the stuff that you're telling them that God would not be happy with.
Right.
And they throw a verse at you like, wives, submit to your husbands. And so that's really hurtful when you're in an abusive situation and you're seeking help, and not sometimes it's not even the abuser. Sometimes it's someone who's trying to counsel you. I had a friend who a pastor told her, that you have to stay together, even though it was a terrible situation because God hates divorce.
Jeez.
So like I said, it's not always the abuser. Sometimes it's people who are in a position of authority, or people who are friends with the abuser. If you have a mutual friend, or if they have a family member. And then the last one is unwanted physical touch, which is pushing, pinning you up against a wall, forcing you to do intimate acts when you're not really wanting to. And so these are ones, that guy said, I went with ones that I personally have experienced. There's probably 1,000 more that I haven't experienced. We actually have a single mom with Unforsaken who was in a domestic violence situation, and she lost her eye. I mean, the range is, it can go from small to huge. Right. So it's a wide spectrum.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all that, because that's very personal.
Yeah.
Why is this topic so important to you?
Yep. So basically, the reason this is so important to me is because my first bully in life was my father. So I started out with, my father was very abusive. He was physically abusive to my mom. I mean, he just would throw her against walls. He would punch her. I mean, it was awful. But my mom hid that from me and my sister. And so he was the type that he constantly was, no matter what I did, it was never good enough. If I came home with a B, he would say, well, you should have gotten an A. And so I would come home with an A, and I would be all proud, and he'd be like, well, you should have gotten an A+. It was just this constant sense of no matter what I did, I was never good enough. and he would tell me, he would tell me and my sister that like we ruined his life because he was this free man before, and my mom was only 17 when she got pregnant with me, so she was very young.
Right.
So they really didn't have a young adulthood.
Right.
So they were thrown into being parents so quickly, and so he resented my sister and I. So he would make little comments like if he wanted to go do something, be like, oh, well, it's because you and your sister, I can't even do this.
Yes. Wow.
And that, just the way he spoke to us, and he actually burned my sister with a cigar one time. I mean, so for me, I didn't realize that was abuse.
Yeah.
I just thought and my mom had this, we feel like we would walk on eggshells. Like he would just get mad, like he hit my mom in the face with a cabinet one time. Like it just was it was just awful. Right. And so, for me, it's so important to me because I lived it and I didn't even need to know.
Yeah.
So there's actually there's this thing that was created by Dr. Vincent Felty, I think his name is. I have it in the show notes. But it's called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Questionnaire. So basically, it's this test that you take. It's very short, just like 10 questions, I think, that kind of examines childhood maltreatment. So it's for 17 and under. Okay. And when I took that, I think my score was like 9. Like it was, I mean, it's things like a parent refusing to feed you, or, a parent like screaming at you, cursing at you. Like it's just like basically all these things that can happen to children. And so the crazy thing about that is in 2022, Susan Nimhart, I'm probably butchering your name, I'm sorry, and Natalie Lima with the Urban Institute, which is a nonprofit that serves communities. They say that research shows that 61% of the general population, so this is everyone, 61% of people have had at least one adverse childhood experience. So if you look at that list, you've had one.
Right.
But what's crazy is that number is closer to 97% of people in prison. So when you think about that, I heard this quote once. I know the celebrity Russell Brand has said it, but I don't know who coined the phrase.
Right.
People talk about marijuana as the gateway drug.
Right.
Oh, marijuana's gateway drug, and you move on to other things. And he actually said that trauma is the gateway drug.
Wow.
So people who, if you were raised in that environment, either your parent is doing drugs or is an alcoholic and you just kind of follow suit, or a lot of times people fall into crime, or they want a sense of community, and that crime community is more supportive, and they have their back, whereas their parents neglect. I mean, I have a friend who her parents were never around. She was 6 years old trying to cook herself mac and cheese, ended up burning her arm because her parents just weren't there. So sometimes a gang or a bad community feels like a bad family to you. Either that, or people who do drugs and alcohol to escape the pain that they've experienced. I mean, it's a coping mechanism.
Right. Yes.
So that's why this is so important to me, is that we don't realize that abuse starts in childhood. Right. I mean, it sounds like a small problem, but it affects 97% of people in prison.
Wow.
And it's just
that's a huge number.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And so my thing is that we need to, number one, have awareness about this.
Yep.
And number two, we need to work on prevention. Because if you don't talk about a topic, how are you ever going to be able to find a solution to it?
And to know that you're even being in that kind of relationship.
Absolutely.
Because you didn't know, and you were. I mean, you got a 9 out of that test. You're like, wait, it's super close to home.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness. So how did having an abusive dad shape your view of God's role as your father?
Oh, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
So the crazy thing is, like I said, my father was physically abusive to my mom and verbally and emotionally to my sister and I. And in the church, he's very musically talented.
Okay.
So he sings, he plays the piano.
Right.
So he in churches, he actually would travel to different churches.
So you grew up in a church?
I did.
Okay.
So my grandma was an ordained minister.
Okay.
And my mom laughs all the time because my mom says that Mo was like a mini version of my grandma.
Right.
So my grandma was starting all these ministries and just helping people.
That's crazy.
So funny.
Yeah.
So actually, a little back up. When my grandma was younger, she was abusive to my mom. I mean, she threw her down the stairs. Like it was.
Wow.
But then when she got older, she realized oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So she actually pulled my mom aside and apologized to her several times, and she was an amazing grandma.
Right.
She was a terrible mom, but an amazing grandma.
Yes.
So my mom was raised in church, and I actually have a family member who was molested by a youth pastor's son in youth group. at the church.
Wow.
So my family has a really long history of church hurt. So, but from my growing up, like I said, by that point, my grandma had repented and changed, and she had become a better person. That's when she's like, no, not the old version. I just want to clarify, I'm not calling Mo.
Yes.
So she really turned her life around. Wow. And she was a chaplain in a hospital, so she, like I said, like Mo, like always serving people. And so my father was in all these different groups, and he would travel to different churches, and he would be up on stage, raising his hands, praising. People would just be like, oh, this man is filled with the Spirit. Yes. And then he would go home and beat my mom.
Wow.
And mistreat me and my sister. And so for me, I remember really, really, really like rejecting God. Wow. Because I thought to myself, if that's what Christians are, I want to be the exact opposite of that. And so, and it was, he actually went on, so he was physically abusive to my mom. She got a permanent restraining order because it was that bad. He remarried, and that wife got a restraining order because he was abusing her. And so it just, it just went on and on and on. And so I remember thinking, like, that's a Christian?
Right.
Like, I don't
even did not want to be.
Oh, and God is the Father. I pictured, like, this demeaning, like, you know, if you think about the 10 Commandments, like, thou shalt not. Like, it was very, I had a very distorted, I only saw God as a punisher.
Yes.
And so, I remember when I was 13 and my sister was 11, my dad was remarried to his second wife. He joined a new church, and so that church had a rule that any member had to be baptized, and me and my sister weren't baptized.
Right.
So he forced us to get baptized. And me and my sister were just like looking at each other, and they're like, what's your good confession? And we're like, Jesus, Lord, I guess.
Yeah,
and we were very like, I was forced to be baptized. And it was a dirty lake. I remember thinking, like, I was like, oh, this is where I get to be. Where's the place where I get baptized? You know? And so picturing God as a father for me was not, I only got baptized because I had to. It wasn't something that I had chosen. Yeah. So fast forward to, I meet Mo and Tommy.
Yeah.
And they're my ex-husband's aunt and uncle.
Yeah.
And our daughter Kylie was sick, and she was in the hospital. And
so by this point, you're like, you're not in church.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. Because you're an adult. You
Absolutely.
can make your own decisions. Yeah.
So that was when I was 13. So at this point, I got pregnant with my daughter when I was 21.
Okay.
So we start going around the family. I'm starting to, because my relationship with my ex-husband happened very quickly. Okay. So we got together in September. I found out I was pregnant in November. Okay. So it was like bang, bang, boom. Like it was, we really didn't, we didn't really have plans to get married. Right. We were kind of just like, and now we're going to be parents. Yeah. Okay, that happened quickly. So we met Mo and Tommy, and I started coming around the family and stuff. And then my daughter was born, and she had a birth defect, so she was in the hospital for 7 weeks, which was very, very hard. And Mo and Tommy were always coming to visit us. And so it was actually, Sarah talks about this. So I had only met Sarah a few times before, and Sarah was like 12. She was like, wow. I'm like, oh my gosh. Wow. So Mo and Tommy came to the hospital with Sarah, and you had to be 13 to come in the NICU, and she wasn't old enough.
Yes.
So I'm sitting in the hospital bed. I just had a C-section, and they're like, Sarah, stay with Angel. And she said she felt so awkward because we didn't know each other. And so she said that I was sitting there, and I'm like in the hospital. I'm like in my hospital gown, and they brought my dinner, and I was like, do you want to share my food? Yeah. And she's like, who are you? So Sarah and I laugh about that. Like she's like, first time I met you, I was like, why am I in your hospital room? So nice to meet you.
Yes.
And so they really, really, at the time, my ex's, both of his parents lived in New York. Okay. So he had no parents here. In Florida. Yeah. So he was kind of he was actually a couch surfer. I mean, he didn't really have a stable because Mo and Tommy had offered for him to live with them, but he was a partier. He didn't want to. He's like, I don't want to be home by 9 p.m. Yeah. Because obviously Mo and Tommy had So he's like, I'll just stay on my friend's couch, and I'll go here, then I'll stay there. So that's actually how we became roommates, was because he needed a place to live. So we actually, that's how we knew each other from high school. But anyway, his aunt and uncle kind of took us under their wing, and they were discipling us. It's so funny. Mo and Tommy talk about they gave us Bible in a box. Right. So they randomly, my daughter had come home from the hospital, and we were just kind of getting into parent life. And they said, do you guys want to come over for Bible study? Right. And I was like, that sounds boring. Like, Bible study? Yes. Like, I was like, what the heck? And so we went over, and they just started giving us, Jesus is the Word of God. Right. You study the Bible, and repent and be baptized, and tithe. They just gave us everything, and we were like, that sounds kind of cool. Yeah. Okay.
So it was just you two. It wasn't like a whole Bible study. It was just you two.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was Mo and Tommy and their kids.
Okay.
And then we were, just us and our daughter.
Yeah.
And just by watching Mo and Tommy and seeing how they dealt with people, I was like, so this is actually what Christian is supposed to be like. And so it really transformed.
And Tommy loving Mo.
Yes.
Like you've never seen that kind of relationship.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she would sit down, he was rubbing her feet, bringing her coffee.
You're like, that's how my dad was.
Yeah, and what was really, essentially, my mom was a married single mom. Because my dad was there, but he wasn't, he was always, he would be out on tour, singing, whatever, and, he was having affairs. Like, it was just very, like, my mom really was a married single mom. Right. She did school drop-offs and pickups. He never one time did that. It was just, so like you said, watching them, I'm like, so this is what a good marriage looks like, and this is what a real Christian looks like. And so that kind of like really turned it for me, where I was like, oh, so maybe there is more to Christianity than what I was, what I was raised with. Yeah. And so when I was 22, I recommitted, and Mo actually baptized me.
Oh my goodness.
So, and so that was really special for me, was that someone who I saw was living the word.
Exactly.
So that's kind of what really shifted my view of Christianity. Right. But I have to be honest, to this day, I still struggle, because I have a stepdad, but by the time my parents got married, I was 12, but I had already been through so much that I was very much like, I didn't really need a father figure per se, or at least I didn't think I needed a father figure.
Sure.
And so for me, even to this day, like when people are like, oh, our father, just think of your own father, I'm like, oh, it's still, I picture God as, as our counselor and as our advocate and as a someone who loves us, but to picture him as a father is still to this day,
still hard.
It's almost like I just can't quite picture it. You know?
Yes.
So for me, I obviously, I've become a Christian, and I did have seasons where I struggled with my faith. Yeah. Like when my daughter passed away, that for me, like I was like, why God?
Right.
Like, why? Sure. Right. I mean, you think about, like I said, there's people who are out there beating people and murdering people, and they get to live. But my daughter, this innocent, sweet little baby, doesn't get to live. Right. So I have struggled with my faith just in general at times. Right. But I've never turned away. I've just kind of gone through seasons where I've just been mad at God, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've never, some people, when they go through really hard things, they completely turn away and they become atheists, and they're like, it's like that movie, oh my gosh, what is it? The movie where the guy is talking to the professor.
Is it Good Will Hunting?
No.
Okay.
It's a where this guy is, oh my gosh, I can't think of the name. But it's a movie where a guy basically is in a college class, and the professor is like an atheist, and then he's like,
the God's not dead.
God's not dead. Yes. And so the line where he's like, I hate God, blah blah blah. And he's like, how can you hate something you don't believe in? And
that's good.
Yes. And so for me, it was definitely I never stepped away. I've had seasons where I've just been, kind of, we get mad at our parents,
Absolutely.
So if God is our father, I'm like, I guess in a way I was mad at my dad,
For sure. And that's your journey. That's your journey with the Lord, and Him changing the way you see Him as a father, as a good father. But that's just going to take time. Yeah. It's not just going to snap and you're going to, because of all that you've been through. Yeah. What impact did growing up in that environment have on your relationships?
In short words, it was a train wreck.
Yes.
And we're done.
Did it like make you pick those types of relationships?
Yeah, so basically what it did was that it taught me that love is not something that you are supposed to just be given freely. It comes with a cost.
Right.
If you act this way, I will love you.
Yeah.
If you act this way, I'm going to withdraw my love. Yeah. So it really taught me. And so I became an extreme people pleaser.
Wow.
I would say yes to every single thing, and that's part of even like with Unforsaken.
Right.
When back in the day when it was just me and Mo, I said yes to everything, and I found myself like I'm like, I don't even have time to do this, but I would say yes. And so it taught me that if somebody would reject me in some sort of way, I would constantly seek. I would never just let a relationship die.
Right.
I would be like, oh, but please forgive me, please hang out with me, please love me, please, I was constantly seeking whether it was healthy or not. And so that it really kind of put me in a really, really bad situation to kind of just let people walk all over me. And it also, it really, let me see, I had a note of this somewhere. But so it actually got to the point that it was so bad over the years that I've had suicidal ideations, where I just would be like, I don't, you know, I'm so miserable that I don't think I can do this anymore. I remember calling my mom one time, and I couldn't even hardly speak. I was crying so hard, and like, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. I just, it was so, I couldn't picture living like this forever. So extreme self-hatred, extreme self-blame. Mo even says, like, imagine guilt, like she feels guilty when the wind blows. I mean, that was me. People would do something to me, and I would be like, oh my gosh, if I hadn't done this, they wouldn't have done that. And I just constantly, I mean, like I said, I felt worthless. Well, let me rephrase that. I've had people tell me that I'm worthless, and I believed it. I have been told that I'm a burden. I have been told that nobody really wants to be around me. I've been told that everything's my fault. I've been told I'm the most selfish person in the world. I've been told I'm a terrible mother. I mean, the list goes on and on. I actually had one person who said it was my fault my daughter died. I mean, I've had people say just terrible, terrible things to me. And yet I was at the ground begging for their forgiveness. And, you know, even though they were the ones that hurt me, I was the one who was like trying to make amends and constantly. And it really was a detriment to myself. I mean, I remember there were several times that I just was so miserable. But I mean, I had my kids, you know, I couldn't commit suicide. I actually have 2 family members that have committed suicide, and so I know the impact that has on a family and the ripple effect. So I could never do that, but it doesn't mean that I didn't feel so just despairing and just lost and just and I remember just thinking, like, God, why? Like, why is this happening to me? You know? And so it not only affected my relationships with other people, so my first real relationship was my little high school boyfriend. Just to give you some context. We were kind of like writing back and forth, like doing little cute notes, because you know high school. Like, will you be my boyfriend? We were writing back and forth, and we started talking. And about a week later, he finally asked me to be his girlfriend. I'm like, okay. He went to jail. Wow. And instead of like a smart person being like, and we're done. I actually like stayed with him because I thought, because he told me I didn't do it, I'm innocent. So he spent months in jail, and I waited for him because I was like,
while you were in high school,
you know, and I'm like, oh, he didn't do it, like, you know. And so that once he got out, I mean, he was extremely possessive. I couldn't even look in another man's direction without him being like, you're cheating on me, and he wouldn't let me go certain places without him, or you know. And so that kind of, you know, that was my first romantic relationship. And then finally I got out of that, and then I went into another relationship, and at the beginning it was fantastic. I remember telling everyone, like, he's perfect. I've never met someone that is just, I mean, he knows exactly what I want, we're on the same page, like, he fawns over me, like, we're a perfect pair. And then slowly the behaviors started to happen after I got pregnant. You know, like, things just like, we got to an argument and he busted the door down, like literally broke our front door. Or just, you know, and then I remember thinking, well, this isn't that bad because he's not punching me. I'm not ending up in the hospital. So for me, it really impacted my lens of what a healthy relationship should be. Because I didn't have it in my upbringing, like a model. I didn't have it in my first relationship. I didn't have it. So for me, it just like, it paved the way for me to just be constantly in unhealthy, toxic relationships because I didn't know any better. And so it really, I was with, I didn't realize, how old would I have been? It would have been in 2000, what year was that? 2021. So I was born in 1988. I didn't realize until I started researching. I actually stumbled across, so I actually, from my one relationship, after we got married, things got so bad that I quit my job. So I quit Unforsaken. I quit my church because I had some church hurt from different people. I came forward to people and they were saying like, oh, it's not big, you know, forgive and forget. So that's where the church hurt kind of came in. I quit drinking. Because I'm like, maybe alcohol is because it was to the point where in order to like shut my mind off, I would have to have a drink to calm me down. Because I just was so miserable that when I would drink, I'd be like, everything's good. So I quit drinking alcohol. I got off social media. I mean, I completely overhauled my life. because I was like, something's got to give.
Right.
And after a few months, nothing improved.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't until I started really kind of, I'm like, well, I thought it was because of my church and I was over on my job.
Right.
And like, I changed all these things and it didn't get better.
Right. Yes.
And that's when I realized that it was my relationship.
Yeah.
That
yes.
was what was making me so miserable. And so we separated. And so in 2021, I was devastated because I tried so hard to like keep my marriage together. And I stumbled across this podcast called Flying Free with Natalie Hoffman. Okay. And she's basically a Christian woman who speaks out against emotional abuse. And I don't even remember how I found it. I just stumbled across it and I listened to the podcast and I was driving and I remember just crying my eyes out because everything that she was saying, I was like, so I didn't realize that from the time I had my furthest memory back until 2021, wow. I was being abused.
Yes.
And some people are like, ooh, easy with the A word.
Right.
But I'm like,
yeah,
I did not realize it.
Right.
And so it really, really impacted me to my own detriment was where I constantly was allowing myself to be in these relationships that were just horrible for me.
Right.
And mentally, spiritually,
right.
Because of what I had, I was raised in that, so I didn't know that it was.
Yes.
I mean, I say even now, I had a coffee date with some friends recently, and we're sitting there talking, and I just said something that had happened in one of my relationships, and my friend stops me and goes, everything that's come out of your mouth about being in a relationship is terrible. She's like,
wow.
You don't ever give relationship advice. And I was like, oh, that's not normal? Like, it just gave, it really messed with my lens of like, oh, that's not normal? Oh, okay. And so I'm just now that I'm, finally my healing, there's stages of healing, which that's a whole nother podcast because that's a really in-depth thing. I'm just now like owning what I've gone through.
Right.
That's why when you ask me, I'm like, I want to talk about this because I was silent for so long, and it really, if someone had sat me down and told me what I'm telling someone now, it might have made a huge difference in my life.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that's why I'm like, it's so important to me to be so honest and open so that hopefully I can, we can teach our daughters and our nieces and our friends' daughters what to look out for and to not stand for it. God does not want anyone to be abused.
Good. That's so good. When you're saying daughters, because it gets super emotional with me, with my 11-year-old, I think of too, like your sons, because you're a boy mom too, right?
Yeah.
That mothering is different, right?
Absolutely.
With them, you're like you're not going to be that to somebody else. I really just appreciate your honesty and openness. How did you regain your sense of self-worth after it was diminished from prolonged abuse?
That is still in process because I still to this day, if somebody says little comments or does something, my first reaction is, oh my gosh, I'm terrible, they hate me. Like it's just my self-worth is slowly rising and then it just plummets the second. So that's something that I'm still working on. But here at Unforsaken, our mission is to help women renew their minds in the Word of God, and to help help women and children locally and globally. So I'm going to start with some scripture.
Yes, thank you.
Because here at Unforsaken, we're always based off the Bible.
Yes.
So the first one is Zephaniah 3:17, and these are all from the New Living Translation, NLT. For the Lord your God is living among you. He is a mighty Savior. He will take delight in you with gladness. With his love, he calms all your fears. He will rejoice over you with joyful songs. And so that one to me, God takes delight in me. And so what's crazy is that I had a really, really terrible parent, and my mom was fantastic. My mom was the complete opposite. I mean, she is the most selfless person I know. And so even with such a great, supportive, wonderful, to this day, because I actually live with my parents now, but if I call her over the most minor thing, she always is there.
Yes.
So it's crazy to me that even though I had a wonderful parent, it didn't counterbalance. And so somehow I still internalized that I was a burden, I was terrible, I was worthless, I just, and so to let anyone who's in an abusive relationship know that God takes delight in you. You are a joy.
Amen.
You were created with a purpose.
Yes.
There's only one of you in the world.
Exactly.
God wanted you to be here. And so just reading that, I am a delight to God. God is glad about me.
Yes, he is.
It kind of gives me a renewed sense of, we're not supposed to base our value. Our value is not found in other people.
That's right.
Our value is not, oh, you're just a mom or you're just a wife. Your value is in Christ.
Yeah.
That's ultimately where we need, let me phrase that. It's where we don't always find our value. It's where we need to make sure. Absolutely. We all probably can do better with that.
Yeah.
And then another one, everyone knows this one, of course. It's Psalm 139, verses 13 through 14. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. And when you think about it, it really makes perfect sense. Like I said, I'm slowly now starting to be able to picture God as a parent. Because I think about when all my children were born, they hand you the baby, and you couldn't be more smitten. No matter what your child looks like, or what they're perfect to you. And so I think that's how God pictures us. You know, He looks at us and He just marvels. And so just the thought of, you know, I don't value myself, I'm learning to, but the fact that God is just like in awe with not just me, with each of us. Is really, really like, it really warms my heart to like think about God. Like, I mean, He gave me this hair color, He gave me these eyes, you know, it's like He made me exactly what I am, and we're all fearfully and wonderfully made. So that's a good one. And then this, of course, this tops all. This is the verse of all verses, of course. John 3:16, 17. Amen. For this is how God loved the world. He gave His one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in Him will not perish but have eternal life. God sent His Son into the world not to judge the world, but to save the world through Him. And so you think about, I mean, like I was saying earlier, that man who murdered that girl, you think about the most terrible person, God still died for them. And so the fact that Jesus was up in heaven, and He left His throne and came down here to be beaten, to be spit on, to be mocked, to be rejected for each one of us. I mean, the fact that He did that just proves how valuable we are. I mean, you think you wouldn't give your life for someone that you didn't, you know, me personally, like at Lakeside Church, Pastor Jason says, you better be glad I'm not God. Because there's times where we're like, die for that guy? No way. So He did. He died for each one of us. And so the fact that if God thinks I'm that valuable, then He would literally suffer everything He went through. I mean, that mic drop. I mean, there's no much more, not a much more powerful statement that you can have than God dying for us. And then the last one is Romans 5:8. But God showed us His great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners. And so that's something that because I got to the point in my relationships where, because I was being abused, I started to lash out and fight back, and I started to become a person that I didn't want to be. I mean, because that's not who you are. It's just one of those things where you can only take so much. You know. And I started saying and doing, and even, you know, during the separation process, there were moments where I look back and I'm like, oh, that was so cringeworthy. Like, why did I do that? But and you know, so the fact that even at my worst, even at any one of our worst, God still looked at us and said, yes. It's worth it. I'm going to die for this terrible person, whether or not they choose to follow me. Because it's not like He only died for the Christians. He died for everyone. And He gave us the free will to be able to decide. And so that really, really empowers me to be like, okay, I had those bad moments, but God He's not going to disown me because I went a little cray-cray for a minute. You know?
Yes, but you just acknowledging that is huge.
So some things that, aside from scripture, and I'm reading this Bible study right now that I've been loving. It's called Field Notes for the Wilderness by Sarah Bessey. And it's basically this woman who, kind of like me, has been through a lot. She lost a child and things like that. And she talks about being, you know, think about the Israelites. God sends them into the wilderness. That basically, essentially what they're saying is kind of fending for themselves, you know? And so she talks about her season of going into the wilderness purposefully, like kind of not stepping away from God, but just like I said earlier, kind of allowing yourself to be mad at Him and kind of struggling with Him, and how she found her way back to faith. And how it's changed. And that to me has just been like, I've been loving that. So I'm definitely,
you can really relate to it.
And that's the thing, for anyone who's going through a hard time, I recommend that resource too. And also I bought the guided journal, which has like breath prayers, and it's really been good for me. And so another book that really, really, really helped me through this process was Good Boundaries and Goodbyes by Lisa Turkhurst. And she has so many good chapters. I think I highlighted the whole book. I was like, and so
she's so good.
She is. I'm like, her and I should be best friends. We've been through so much of the same, like similar situations. But one thing that she said is, forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. And And that struck me so hard because the Bible, when you think forgive,
right.
you think, oh, I gotta be having dinner with this person. And she's like, no, it says forgive.
Right.
It frees your heart and your mind of carrying the burden.
So good.
But it does not mean you have to be having coffee with the person.
Absolutely, right.
And so with my dad, I tried so hard to give the olive branch and forgive, and it got to the point where I realized, like, he is who he is, and it's not practical for me to think that he's ever gonna be who I need him to be, and especially now that I have kids, I don't want my kids around that. Exactly. Like you talked about, you know, I'm trying to teach my boys like every day. Well, not every day, but I say to them all the time, which fruit of the spirit are you acting in? Are you acting love, joy, peace, patience, kindness? Which one? Or which one could you, you know, the other night at dinner, I said, which fruit of the spirit could you use more? And so I'm trying to teach them to not copy the, you know, the models that they have of men who are not good spouses and not good, you know. So it's really, really important. And so that's that for me. Claiming my self-worth is I'm valuable enough that I don't have to be in a relationship with someone who continually hurts me. And before I would have, you know, like I said, I gave my dad a million chances. And it finally was to the point where I'm like, no, God does not want us to just be doormats. And so really kind of allowing myself to place boundaries has done so much for myself. Now I'm to the point where I look at a relationship and I say, is this helping me? Is this bringing me closer to God? Is this loving? Is this reciprocal? If it's not, then I let it go. Because it's just, I mean, life is too short. I'm a busy mom of 3. I'm working. Like, I don't have time to sit there and like spend time with these people who make me constantly feel terrible about myself. So that has really been instrumental for me. And then another thing is my support system. I have to shout them out. So I have my mom and my stepdad and my sister, and you know my best friend Kelly.
I know.
I've got a friend Ashley, who she actually went through a very similar divorce situation. So we became single moms right at the same time. I've got my friend Kaylee, who's been my closest friend since I was in 4th grade. I really just had Sarah. Like I really just had I was surrounded, you know, the Bible talks about being surrounded by a cloud of witnesses. I was just surrounded by these people that did child exchanges with me when I was scared to go by myself. They brought me coffee. You know, they made sure I was eating. They watched the boys if I had to, you know, go meet with my attorney, or, you know, they prayed with me. So I would say to anyone, whether or not you're in a bad or good relationship, it doesn't matter. Find yourself. So I call them the committee. So basically, like when I want to do something or if something happens, I'll send a text to the committee and they have to approve it. Because like I said, my value of what's right and what's not right is still somewhat distorted. So they're like my sounding board. You know, so I bounce it off of them. Like there's times when I'll text Mel and I'll be like, shouldn't? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, thank you. So I would highly recommend that everybody find yourself a committee. Because they have said to me, like I remember Sarah when I called her right as I was becoming a single mom, and I'm just sobbing. And I'm like, I'm a terrible wife, I'm a terrible mother, I'm a terrible person. And she's like, in the name of Jesus, that's a lie. Like so for people to speak into you helps, for them to say to me, help me increase my value, or help me to be able to see my value. Whereas before I was like, I'm worthless. Like I've literally been told you're worthless. Like it's hard to undo that. And so I remember actually when I was doing counseling at one point, and the counselor said to me, you have to get those abusers' voices out of your head. Because I would be like, oh, well, I'm blah, blah, blah. And she's like, stop. That's not true. That's not true. That's not what, you know, what is your perception. That's what you have been wired. Because our brains have a negativity bias where we automatically go to the negative. It's almost like, you know, you think about back in the day, like they talk about the fight or flight response. Our bodies were wired to protect us from danger. And so if you're constantly going to the negative and almost trying to, for me personally, it's like I'm constantly thinking about the bad so that I can try to undo it. Or because like with my boys, I'm like, ooh, I don't want them to happen to this. So how did I, like kind of almost like working backward. And so I really, really, really have had to kind of, I'm in the process of training myself to either let it be neutral, because things can be neutral. This friendship is gone. Okay. That doesn't have to be a life-ending, terrible, you know. And so, or to also like look for the good. So there's this term, who coined it? Licensed clinical social worker Deb Dana. So we talk about triggers. So most people know, but a trigger is basically something that brings back a really negative memory. Right. So for me, there's certain songs that come on or certain places I go that I instantly feel my chest tightens and my stomach hurts, and I'm like, it literally, I have a physiological response, and so it's a trigger. So a glimmer is the opposite. It's something that uplifts you and makes you happy and joyful, and even just for a quick moment. And so that's something I've really had to lean into, is looking for the glimmers. Because my triggers are everywhere. Yeah. Because there was a certain point, especially for, when I was first separated, where I tried to avoid all my triggers. Right. But I mean, even looking at my kids can be a trigger. Exactly. You know, because they'll say something or they'll do something that they have no clue is something that, you know, and so I can't walk through life avoiding triggers. Right, no, I just can't. No. So what I have to do now is I have to focus on the glimmers. Yes. And so that's something, I talked about at the beginning, a couple things. Like, so for me, it's been joining book clubs and just kind of having that community of like-minded people. I have this beautiful, my parents and I bought a house, and I have this beautiful back patio that there's no one behind us, so we just have a lake. Yes. I hear the birds singing in the morning. I just sit on the patio with a hot cup of tea. Yeah. I like to travel, so I've been, now that when I had to start giving my kids over for visitation, I mean, last Christmas was my first Christmas without them. Right. And Christmas Eve was one of the worst days of my life. I just cried all day, because I'm like, I've never not been with my kids on Christmas. So I've started taking some of my kid-free weekends, and I've just been visiting friends and traveling. Yeah. So for me, it's really been instrumental for building my self-worth, that who am I? Right. What do I like? Yeah. Because in the past, I would say something or do something and I would be mocked, or I would be, made fun of, or I would be like, well, that's stupid. Why do you want to do that? Yeah. And so I really kind of didn't allow myself to do what I wanted to do a lot of the times. And so now it's like, I'm allowed to do what I like to do. Yeah, exactly. So that for me has been instrumental in, helping me realize that, I do have worth, and I'm allowed to enjoy things. Exactly. Even though I'm told I wasn't supposed to, I'm allowed to. Right. So, and the way I think about it is, because talking about relationships and whatnot for self-worth. So say, for example, you're walking with someone across a rope bridge. Right. And halfway through, they cut the bridge and you fall. Right. And then they rebuild the bridge and say, come on. Yeah. And then the next day, they cut it again. Right. How many times would you allow yourself to walk across that bridge? Right. You'd be like, no. Yes. So for me, really kind of allowing myself to just evaluate and purposefully choose who I give my time and energy to has been like top tier rebuilding my self-worth. Yes. So you get to choose. Yes. Yeah. It has. So those are the things that have kind of helped me. And like I said, it's still a process. Right. I recently had. I was with a different counselor. I've been in a lot of counselors. Right. Yes. My son actually had a counselor, and so I was with her, and she really had to kind of put in perspective for me. So she actually, I came into her office and I was really upset about something that had been said to me, specifically about, I was told I was a terrible parent. Like, you need to grow up and stop being so selfish. You're a terrible parent. Wow. So she actually physically took a piece of paper, taped it on the wall, and drew a line and said, judgment and truth. And she made me physically write out, okay, this is what the judgment said. Terrible parent, you're selfish, you need to grow up. What's true out of that? Right. And I was like, oh, that's really just someone's opinion. Exactly. And so before, that's huge. Being able to not internalize everything that is said about me that's bad has been really, really good for making me realize that I am, I'm worthy, I'm valued, I'm loved by God, we all are. So that's been,
you are in such a process right now, and you get to choose who you spend your time with. You get to choose what to do. Yep. And you're finding the glimmer. Absolutely. I mean, that is huge for anybody.
It really is.
Because like when you were saying that we are just prone to go to negative, I was like, do we really? But I'm like, yes, we do. And so we've got to renew our mind and say, nope, I'm not gonna be negative. Yeah. I'm gonna be positive.
Because for example, just one perfect example. Think about the news. When you watch the news, do you see man rescues an old woman, or person helps it? what do you see on the news?
All negative. Yes.
So it's not even just our mind, but our entire society is wired to
absolutely
focus on the negative.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer that like that's just the way our world is, and we got to change it.
Yeah.
You know, we get the Bible says we got to bring heaven to earth.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's part of the way we do that is by being grateful. You know, the Bible talks about having a grateful heart.
Yeah.
That's why. You know, because out of what's in your heart flows out of your mouth.
Right, absolutely.
So if you have a grateful heart, you know, so it's definitely, this isn't something that is just people who've been abused. This is anyone. Anyone can benefit from that.
Yes, that's so good. That's so good. As we just wrap this podcast up, I'm so thankful for you sharing this. These are so great. This is great information, and even if people aren't going through abuse, how can we help someone that is, you know? Having a support system, having that committee, you know, before we do something, asking somebody, trusted, somebody
it's
that
like
you
an
trust.
Accountability partner.
Yeah, just not anybody. You know, you're not gonna just ask this person that you know is gonna give you the answer that you want. Somebody that, well, maybe you shouldn't, you know, and having that person saying, nope, that you are a woman of God. That is a lie. Are there any additional resources you might want to highlight for anyone who is in any kind of unhealthy relationship, or maybe you suspect that someone that you know is? Is there any resources? I know that we're going to have some stuff in the show notes. But
absolutely. So one thing, like I said, that for me was, I already mentioned it, but it's Flying Free with Natalie Hoffman. She has a website, she has a podcast. That I feel like really kind of gives people, like I said, there's a quiz on there that you can say, am I in an unhealthy relationship? So it really kind of is a good starting point for someone who's like, I'm not really sure.
Right.
Another one is my girl Lisa Turkhurst. I'm like, just can we be besties, please?
I know, she's so good.
But so she created this like PDF document that says, is this normal? 15 red flags you may be missing in your relationship. And it's literally just like a little questionnaire that's like, do they constantly mock you, or do you feel like you're walking on eggshells? So it's really just a good resource for anyone to kind of just to gauge, because there's a difference between a relationship that kind of needs help, like you guys have a problem that you can work on together, and one that's abusive. They're really not the same thing. So I actually, someone said to me at Lakeside, the Pastor Caroline, Pastor Jason's wife, I called her and I was just one thing, and I said, you know, this has happened to me, and you know, I've been cheated on 3 times and 4 times and just whatever. And she said, I'm like, oh, my marriage is having a hard time, because I'd actually reached out when we had separated. I had reached out about marital counseling because I wasn't ready to let my marriage go. And she said, if someone does something 3 or 4 times, that's not a marriage problem. That's that person problem.
Wow.
You know, and I was like, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
So even just, you know, reaching out to your pastors and just kind of, like you said, finding that trusted community that you can even just kind of say, hey, like, is this normal? Is this okay? Like, where do we go from here? And then I actually just yesterday found this really, really great woman, Leslie Vernick. She's a Christ-centered counselor, which that's hard to find.
It is.
So there's either like care counselors who are Christians but they're not licensed, or there's the secular counseling. It's really, really hard. I've noticed that too, to find Christian counselors who also have like the degree. And she has a really great website. I was looking at some of her blog posts. Because I just was like Googling, I'm like, oh, I wonder if there's, and so I found her yesterday. And so I would really, really recommend that if somebody wants, because I think she even like does coaching. So if somebody wanted to like reach out to her for like a consultation to kind of, you know, see what the Bible says about it. She has a whole post about what the Bible says about abuse. And so it was really, really good. I mean, there was a ton of scriptures in there. I was just like, I think I highlighted them all yesterday. I was like, and highlight. So that was a really, really good one.
That's great.
So that's just for anyone. And for anyone who's here in the Lake County area, there are 2 specific ones. So there's one called I Am a Safe Place, and that's Julia DeArts and her husband Adrian. So basically they are a domestic violence awareness and prevention nonprofit. And they like offer transitional housing, they offer free counseling. But you do have to be kind of local to this area, because a lot of survivors don't, you know, for me, for example, I didn't have a car. I shared a car in my marriage, and so that had to be, in the divorce, that had to be kind of, you know, I wouldn't have had a vehicle had it not been for that. So a lot of people in abusive relationships may not have a way to travel very far. So if someone is in Orlando and they have a car, they could completely come, because they do free support groups and stuff. So they could, but so for anyone who's really local here to Claremont, that's an instrumental resource.
Right.
Unforsaken has actually partnered with them.
Right. Yes.
We actually help them furnish their office with our thrift store. So they send survivors to us who need like a night in a hotel.
Right. Yeah.
So that has been Julia and Adrian actually have a daughter who her ex-boyfriend tried to kill her. He ran her over with a car. So they have they took what happened to them.
Right.
And made good out of it.
Yep.
And so if we maybe in the future we should do a whole podcast about the stages of healing.
Right.
That's one
Absolutely.
of the stages is taking what happened to you and making something more meaningful out of it. So they are just a perfect example of that. And then the other one is Haven of Lake and Sumter counties. That's up in Leesburg.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's in like the more north end of the county, they have people who will come and sit in the courtroom with you, like if you have to speak against your abuser.
Yes.
They do. I actually did counseling with them for a year and a half when I was going through my issues, because they do it completely for free. So, and my counselor, Carrie was his name. He was also one of my sounding board. Like I would say something and he'd be like, stop you right there, girl.
Wow.
So that is really good. And they actually will, if someone needs a place to stay, they will help with that. And I think that's more long-term. I Am a Safe Place is more like short-term. Haven is more long-term. And they help them find jobs and it's really, so if you're here in Lake County, those are two that I would say specifically to reach out to. And then if you know someone that you're kind of like, I actually had someone at a book club. I'm telling you, I'm like, yeah, book clubs. I had someone at a book club come up to me and say, I have a friend who I really think is in a bad relationship. What do I do?
Yes, that's good.
What I told her, and I'll say this always, is just be there for them. So if someone is, you're so beat down, you're in such a negative mindset when you're in that relationship,
that's good.
to just have someone say, hey, can I have a coffee with you?
Yes.
Non-judgmental, don't push them, or if somebody confides in you, never tell a survivor that you do not believe them. I don't care if you don't tell them that. Because as someone who, I actually came forward about things that I've experienced, and I was called a liar, and maybe someone said I was the devil. It was just some of the responses I got. I've lost friendships because I've come forward because people didn't believe me. So not being believed is just about one of the worst things you can do to a survivor. So if you suspect it, or if someone confides in you, just be there for them. That is the number one thing you can do. And it doesn't even have to, you don't even have to say that you believe them. Just be like, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. Just offer to watch their kids for an hour. Just anything you can do just to be there for that person will, they will remember that forever. To this day, I can talk about specific things, even like Mo and Tommy, there's specific things that they have done, just simple things that made such a difference to me when I was going through, because really that is, yes, my daughter dying was very hard, and people are shocked when I say this, but my divorce in many ways was harder, because what was happening was a direct result of someone's intentional choices. My daughter got cancer. What am I going to do? Go do punch cancer? That's not even that was out of our control. My divorce was, people were like coming after my character, and so in many ways it was harder because I thought I was hoped. I had hoped I was gonna be married forever, and when that dream came crashing down, I remember specifically things that people said that hurt me and things that helped me and just supported me. And so I'm so grateful that I do, because a lot of survivors they only have the negative, they don't have the positive. So I am very grateful that I had that to lean on. So I would just say, if you think someone is, just be that support for them. That's really, they'll ask you for what they need. Maybe buy diapers for their baby, or there's practical things you can do. If they don't have a car, maybe giving them a ride to the doctor, or there's so many practical things you can do, but kind of let them direct you on that, because every situation is different.
For sure.
But for me personally, that is what I would say, is just be there for them, be supportive, never call them a liar. Those are
great tips. Those are great tips.
Absolutely.
Oh man, thank you so much, Angel. I really appreciate you being open and vulnerable to this discussion. It's going to help so many people. I know it well. So we are going to put the show notes, everything that you suggested that we check out. Those were helpful. I love that you're a reader. I always hear readers are leaders, and you're a leader. But yeah, you definitely have some influence, and I want to make sure that we get this podcast out to so many people. Thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment on this podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye. God bless you.
Thank you.